Flame on. Flame on. Flame on. Flame on. Flame on.
Edgy baby, it's your babe.
Ladies and gentlemen, ooh. Hello, do I have your attention? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Do you feel grounded? Do you feel like you care about soil? Then you're in the right place tonight. We're really excited to have you here, and thank you for everyone who's come to Scaling Soil Health for People, Nature, Climate. We want to talk about moving from resolutions today, and we'll be talking about a few different resolutions onwards to the wonderful elements about how we implement. If I'm not mistaken, there is no PowerPoint up there right now. So we're going to just call up the PowerPoint. There are a few key facts that we'd like to use to frame out this discussion. And it was up there, and now, so we've got a wonderful lineup today. I'll be introducing all of them as we go. My name is Robin Anderson. I'm with Emerging Ag. I am from a farm in the middle of Canada, in a place called Dugald, Manitoba, and we have beautiful black soils on our farm, and it's something that we're really passionate about and have been working on for a long time. And we're going to have people who are even more expert on soils talking today. So one of the things I want to talk about is the global relevance of soils. You may not appreciate this, but 95% of your food comes from this earth, the soils that we live on. And we have the potential to grow 58% more food if we are making good use of our soils and we're allowing them to be productive ecozones. And many of us think perhaps about that food systems tie, but we also want you to think about the power of soil health in understanding restoration, understanding a healthy ecosystem. We're here at United Nations Environment Assembly, and we're talking about all of these issues that relate to how we have a biodiverse planet, a planet with a healthy climate, and all of that starts with our soil. So soil degradation negatively impacts 3.2 billion people globally. This is a staggering figure, and our collective work to advance the way in which we are keeping our soils healthy, making sure that we do not allow them to be degraded, monitoring them, and then dealing with land restoration in the cases where they do get degraded is essential. And part of this is that we are interested in investments in soil health, that these investments are needed, and there's an opportunity to build on all of the fantastic work that's been happening on a policy side. And we're going to have a panel tonight that speaks about that. So our objectives today are to really highlight the importance of soil, to support the activities that have started to be undertaken, and to implement all of the excitement that is going on related to the UN CCD, which will be coming up next. So we want to carry that momentum all the way forward. And to do that, I want to call up our very esteemed speakers. First, we have Susan Gardner. Susan is the Director of Ecosystems at UNEP. Susan, if you'd like to come up and join us, we'd love to hear your remarks.
I didn't hear that. Did anyone hear that? Well, I think now we're off to a better start, but I really liked how Robin started out by, asking if we are feeling grounded. Talking about soil health, we need to be thinking about, are we feeling grounded in reality and facts? Something that too many people don't even notice. And yet, we can really, truly think about soil health as one of our greatest nature-based solutions. A nature-based solution that's essential for food security, right? Relying on soils. That's the most obvious one, but our health begins with soil. Even our peace and security and stability all depends on the health of our soil. And of course, this is especially true here in this continent. In Africa, where agriculture is the backbone of so many economies, contributing 20% of Africa's per capita GDP. This means employing about 60% of workers. So when you have soil deterioration here in Africa, it's going to be farmers and families. It's going to be local communities who are going to feel this first. And so the pressures are truly immense. We saw some good statistics from Robin to get us started. 1/3 of the world's soils are degraded, and we lose about 24 billion tons of topsoil each year. Now, that sounds like a lot, but we also have to keep in mind that nature needs centuries just to rebuild the top millimeters. In sub-Saharan Africa, degradation affects 2/3 of cropland and costs economies almost $70 billion every year. And so that's literally money that's just getting washed away. Money as well as strong harvests, as well as stable incomes. Again, we're talking about real impacts for families and communities. But there is another side of the story, and that's the positive side. So we can invest in soil health, and we can see real rapid, visible change. One of the most direct ways that African countries can deliver on, for example, the Coming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, as well as to advance on climate and land degradation neutrality commitments, is through investing in soils. And of course, African leaders already recognize this. We've been very pleased that AMCEN has been one of the locations where environment ministers have asked UNEP to support work on strengthening soil governance. UNEP is very proud to be helping African partners move away from just more political commitments and aspirations to truly concrete soil solutions using mechanisms like the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. And through the World Restoration Flagships, we have programs like Regreening Africa that brings degraded land back. And we're working across 8 countries right now that's going to reach more than 600,000 households. This is through things like tree growing, through farmer-managed natural regeneration, through soil and water conservation, basic things that show as a world flagship, this is how you do it. This is how you get impact at scale. Farmers are adopting practices that match their landscapes. Communities are gathering data on soil with technology that's available, mobile apps, fine-tuning their efforts along the way. Incomes from tree-based products have already started to rise. So this is very practical, it's very community-led, and families can actually feel the difference in their homes. In Ethiopia, you can see transformations on hillsides where they're improving soil health and topsoil erosion, and villagers have agreed to stop farming and grazing on the steep slopes because they recognize there's a benefit to changing the practices that are accessible. They build small terraces and dams, and rainwater then can slow down so that vegetation can return. To ease pressures on soils, families have started other activities. Things within reach, like beekeeping, adds important sources of additional food, nutrition, as well as income. Learning how to rotate crops, nurturing native trees that boost soil fertility, using compost instead of very expensive fertilizers. So these are practical decisions that protect soil while also strengthening resilience. And they're made by communities who actually understand their land better, of course, than anyone. Africa's home to more than 400 million young people. And the future that they inherit is dependent on soil health. That means we need to ensure that we have, this generation, as we hand over the baton, that we're handing them coherent policies, robust data systems, coordinated investments that actually match the scale of the challenge. And that's where Shield Africa comes in, being launched just next month and co-led proudly by UNEP. Shield responds directly to AMCEN and the UNCCD decisions to help countries achieve land degradation neutrality and build on a foundation for long-term food security. And it will support countries to strengthen laws and institutions, building modern soil information systems, attracting blended finance, equipping farmers, young people, small enterprises, with the skills and the technology that they need to actually scale soil positive and resilient practices. So here we are today at UNEA 7, and we're inviting member states and partners to connect their existing restoration and food systems and climate programs to Shield Africa. The goal is to move from what's too often scattered efforts to coordinated, coherent, continent-wide push that treats African soils as that strategic asset that they truly are for people as well as the planet. Because we know when soils are healthy, communities will stand stronger and food systems become more resilient. And that's how nature supports hope for the future, for stable and dignified futures. Thank you.
Susan, thank you so much for those words. We're all excited to hear about SHIELD and to learn more about it. And what a perfect way to frame the start of today, that we are already talking about not only the policy, but the implementation. That was just the inspiration we need. And now for even more inspiration, we're going to call upon Professor Eliane Obalijaro. Please, Eliane, come and join us here. She is the CEO of C4ICRAF. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Robin. Yeah. Okay. So I just want to thank all of you to be here with us today. I know you've had a long day, so it's really nice to have such a crowded room tonight. So distinguished representatives of member states, colleagues from the United Nations Environment Program, and valued partners, good evening. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to Scaling Soil Health for People, Nature, and Climate, from resolution to implementation. Thank you for dedicating this time at the close of a demanding first day of UNEP to focus together on what is happening beneath our feet. We convene at a defining moment, grappling with profound challenges, nourishing nearly 9 billion people without exceeding planetary boundaries, while protecting nature and stabilizing the climate. Over a third of Earth's surface is already degraded. Lee likes to call it Earth's skin, including half of all agricultural lands. When soil falters, yields plummet, communities grow vulnerable to droughts and floods, ecosystems lose resilience, and nations falter in meeting climate and biodiversity targets and goals. We know this particularly from our Asian counterparts who have been experiencing flooding more recently. So this is something that we are all living. We have staff, partners who have been affected by the most recent floods, whether in Vietnam, in Indonesia, and Sri Lanka, and other places. Scaling soil health worldwide must therefore anchor our drive to combat land degradation and desertification, transforming scarcity into shared prosperity. The good news is that we are not starting from zero. African environment ministers through AMCN Decision 21A have affirmed sustainable soil health as the cornerstone for resilient food systems and nature-positive growth across the continent. This advances UNCCD Decision 19, COP16, on avoiding, reducing, and reversing land and soil degradation in agriculture. It connects directly to the global ambition of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, particularly Target 2, on restoring at least 30% of degraded ecosystems by 2030. And it aligns with the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, which calls on all of us to prevent, halt, and reverse degradation across landscapes and seascapes. So at C4ICRAF, we are proud to be leading this through the Regreening Africa that was recognized last year as a flagship program by the UN Decade. What brings us together tonight is a shared recognition that these resolutions and decisions only matter if they translate into healthier soils on real farms, in real landscapes for real people. This is why this event is framed as from resolution to implementation. We want to explore what it will actually take to operationalize these commitments in national policies and budgets, in farmer and pastoralist livelihoods, in private sector investments, and in the monitoring systems that allow us to track progress and enable swift adaptation. How we work with financial inclusion to really harness soil health is also really critical. At C4ICRAF, we champion science as the backbone of soil health, fueled by vibrant global partnerships, and as world-leading center for soil and land restoration, integrated soil information, and organic carbon accounting, our research and action fortify food and nutrition security to propel national restoration targets and underpin climate pledges. Our work provides solid, actionable evidence on soil and land health through a state-of-the-art soil spectroscopy laboratory and one of the world's most extensive databases of land health indicators available. This scientific infrastructure is complemented by our decades of experience in agroforestry. We know that well-designed tree-based systems can reduce soil erosion by up to 50%, and if implemented at scale, can increase food security for more than 1 billion people. These are not just numbers. They point to very concrete pathways for linking soil health to livelihoods, resilience, and climate action. I might also highlight C4ICRAF's co-leadership of the Coalition for Action for Soil Health, a dynamic force shaping global soil agenda and ecosystem investments that had huge presence at COP30. So it's really critical that we go on beyond these meeting spaces to the real spaces out there. And what is really key is how all this work exemplifies multi-stakeholder power, forging enabling environments to finance, scale, and monitor thriving soil ecosystems, from farm fields to national and global reports. This is why the diversity of actors in this room is so important. And again, thank you all for showing up this late. We have member states, we have partners from all over the world, and we really see this work as key to how we move together forward. We know we cannot do this work alone. And we have scientists and technical experts developing tools to measure soil organic carbon, fertility, and biological activity at scale. We have farmer organizations that understand the daily trade-offs of soil management. We have youth and civil society bringing new energy and accountability. And we have investors and private sector leaders who can help shift capital flows towards practices that build rather than mine soil health. This evening, I hope our conversation can do three things. First, spotlight practical, scalable tools for monitoring soil health that nations and partners can adopt and scale. Second, unveil inclusive investment models, shielding smallholder farmers from risk as they embrace soil building practices. And third, forge the partnerships and governance to leap from project wins to systemic transformation. Be bold and candid. What is working and why? Where are the gaps in data finance and capacity? How can we ensure that the voices of farmers, and particularly of women and youth, shape the design of soil health programs rather than being consulted at the end? And how do we align our efforts so that a government ministry, a farmer federation, a company, and a development bank can see themselves in the same soil agenda? Soil may be out of sight, but it can no longer be out of mind. If we get soil health right, we accelerate progress across restoration, climate, and biodiversity commitments, and we strengthen the foundations of food systems that are both resilient and just. If we neglect it, we will find ourselves continually responding to crises instead of building lasting resilience. It is an honor to be with you this evening, and I am grateful for the insight and dedication each one of you brings. I look forward to a meaningful dialogue that brings us closer to translating our shared commitments into action on the ground. With that, let us begin our conversation, and looking forward not only to the conversation tonight, but to how the conversation, as it's being captured and will be shared later, will also continue to influence how we move together in the future. Thank you.
All right, with those two inspiring speeches, who loves soil? Put up your hand if you love soil. Almost everybody, but not everybody yet. We're going to convince you. Who loves trees? Anyone love trees in this room? Okay. Carrots? You like carrots too. James, that depends on the soil. This is a truly organic conversation. And then if we think about the way in which we're stakeholders, do you all feel like you are vested in the soil? No, not yet. So we have more work to do today. Now, who knows where C4ICRAF's campus is? Oh, about half the room. Eliane, you are famous. It is right next door for any of you who are not from Nairobi or regularly at the UN. It's right next door. And that is where they have the amazing soil lab that she was talking about with all the data. as well as a beautiful campus dedicated to agroforestry. So right here in Nairobi is some of the best work that's happening in the world. And Eliane has called us all to be stakeholders in that work here in Africa and beyond. Thank you, Susan and Eliane, for your inspirational comments. We're going to start now with our panel. I'd like to call upon each of our panelists. I'll bring them up all at once. So Mr. James Lomax, who's the Program Management Officer at UNEP, an old and dear friend who has been working on land and food systems well ahead of the curve, and we very much appreciate. Please come in and take a seat here, James. A.G. Kawamura, the co-chair of the Farmer Major Group. He's also co-chair of Solutions from the Land, and one of the most progressive farmers you'll ever know, and he grows a lot of vegetables, so James must like him a lot because he likes carrots. And carrots. Lily Tanui. Lily, please come up. Lily is a fantastic young leader for climate action from the Kenya National Farmer Federation. We always want farmers in this conversation. That's one of the great things about soils. It is multi-stakeholder because land is held by so many different people. And Pravina Sridhar, from the coordinator of Save Soil, come on up, Pravina. We're very excited to have you here as well. And Martina Fleckenstein, who is the global policy lead for the world, for WWF International. Thank you to our esteemed panel. Can we welcome them? This esteemed panel has been working on policy on soils long before this conversation was common, and I think that's why it's so powerful to have all these different voices here. James, if you can reach forward for one of those microphones and get that to James, can you highlight a little bit about the recent AMSEN conference, which is the African Environment Ministers Conference, and what they talked about on soils and what you're going to do about it?
Thanks so much. Thanks so much. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you very much, and I'm very honored to be here. Very honored as well that UNEP has got to co-host this with such a fantastic organization, which of course is across the fence. And we do collaborate, but I think, Susan, maybe we should collaborate a bit more because we're literally across the fence. So it's great to be here. Always at UNEA we do that. We do collaborate with ICRAF, so it's fantastic. So why is the AMSEN decision so important? The AMSEN decision is important because it represents the wishes of 54 ministries of environment on the African continent. And for us, as the United Nations Environment Programme, this is a fundamental and foundational development in our work on land degradation, so land restoration, and also in our quest to stimulate more sustainable food systems. Within our work, we look at how can ministries of environment become much more interested in the role that agriculture plays, rather than, say, one of our sister organizations like FAO may take a different approach. They may think, well, how can we mainstream environment in the agriculture sector? For us, it's slightly different. It's how can we get ministries of environment to really care what's happening? And I think Susan said it right. As she said, the nature-based solution, focusing on soil health, does so many things. We talk about water retention in soils. We talk about resilience for vulnerable communities. We talk about buffering pollutants, so that wasn't mentioned. We talk about carbon capture. There are numerous co-benefits to working on soil health that go beyond just climate and community resilience. So there are many, many things that make our food system more sustainable going forward. And that's why I'm really pleased to, and I was quite honored actually, that the AMSEN decision was made in July of this year. We are, if you put that forward, of course, with the decision 19 from COP16 at UNCCD about land restoration in agricultural land, in soil restoration in agricultural land, that gives, I think, a very, very powerful mandate for us to work. Now, the AMCEN decision specifically looks at issues around governance. Governance, I think, is a really important part. Land tenure, of course, is a really important part. But it also gives us the opportunity to go deeper, to talk about data, get the private sector involved, and also bring a mosaic of donors, a mosaic of skill sets that we have. They could be country-owned assets, they could be private sector-owned assets, to bring a mosaic and a federated approach to building initiative for better soil health restoration in this continent, which we know, Robin, is the continent that's the most vulnerable. Thank you.
It is. Brilliant, James. And I think in addition to all the great things that James talked about, there's even more policy decisions that we'll be getting to as the panel progresses. But I think, James, you also talked about soil health as foundational. And sometimes the conversation at CCD and other places is about land degradation, but we don't want soils to get degraded. And I really appreciate the way you were referencing soil health, because our first and best action is to protect the soil health that we have and to not allow lands to get degraded, and then to deal with restoration where degradation has occurred. But let's start first by not creating a terminal patient. Let's make sure that we're engaged right at the beginning. And I think, AG, you are one of these farmers I know who has actually worked intensively on bringing soil back to life. AG is a very extraordinary farmer. He grows in California, and he's a landless farmer. He grows in very creative places where he's often asked to bring back soils that have been severely degraded in urban settings and made into something that can produce fruits and vegetables. AG, tell us a little bit about some of the key achievements that you've had in your own experience and the work that Solutions for the Land is doing on soil health.
Sure. Thank you, Robin, and thank you for the sponsors for a chance to share some thoughts here. I'm approaching a 50-year career in agriculture, starting out as a beekeeper and being basically a fruit and vegetable grower in a county called Orange County in Southern California, near Disneyland, for those of you who would know that area. We're in a Mediterranean climate, so it's dry, and we irrigate. For 38 years of those 50 years, we've been what we call a gypsy farmer. And the gypsy farmer is just to say we don't own the ground that we farm on. So we find pieces of property as much as 1,000 acres in a year or more, but it's spread out all over. It might be underneath the power lines. It might be a military base. It might be part of a university land grant system. It might be a local community college. It might be elementary schools. It might be other utility properties that are open, and certainly it's property that was destined for development by developers who own a piece of ground. We get to say that we're land managers with an edible landscape theme. So we grow fruits and vegetables on these pieces of ground. Sometimes we get to rent them for a year. Sometimes we get to rent them for 20 years. A lot of times it's just a handshake, and the landlord recognizes that we're an asset, because if we're not there, they have weed abatement costs, they have insects and diseases and rodents that are accumulating on the piece of ground. And sometimes we'll get paid to farm on a piece of ground. Other times we'll pay whatever the going rent is in an area. In that model, it's interestingly, we learned very easily that if the weeds are growing really nicely, it's probably a pretty good piece of ground. And if we could find a water source, like a fire hydrant or a canal that might be next door, we can farm on pieces of ground as small as 3, 4, 5 acres of size, up to 300, 400, 500 acres. We've been growing fruits and vegetables, mostly vegetables and fruits, for the commercial marketplace, although at one point we were certified organic growers growing for the local farmers markets as well. So we've tried a little bit of everything. Bringing a piece of ground that's already a basket case, that's you can tell nothing's growing on it. I've had several experiences doing that, where actually a developer was about to develop a piece of ground, and suddenly the market collapsed for the building environment collapsed, and they said, would you come back and tend this piece of ground, because we're going to get in trouble with erosion and other things if it starts raining. This piece of ground was pressed down, compacted, killed. They ruined it, they killed it, and it was ready to pour concrete and asphalt on it. And we said, well, you could pay me to go over and farm that field because I don't think I can get anything to grow. And sure enough, we tried to get in there. The ground was so compacted, we could barely get with our tractors the ground to be broken up with a subsoil ripper. It was so compacted. And when I say dead, when Lee talks about a billion microbes in a teaspoon, individual organisms in a tablespoon of soil or a teaspoon of soil, I'd be surprised if there was 10,000 in that teaspoon of that soil. It was dead. It was a dead piece of ground. I just wanted to say it took us almost 2.5 years by opening the ground up, bringing in compost, bringing in a few other amendments, but more importantly, planting something that would grow, which was like barley, and eventually then some corn, which would give us some tillage and some tilth with the organic matter. And it really took us about 2.5 years to bring it back where I could actually risk a crop of green beans. But that was the miracle of soil, because the soil was there, sandy loam. The soil was there in terms of structure, it just didn't have any organic matter in it. And the minute we started to bring organic matter back, you started to see that ability for the plants to actually set root and actually start to, not thrive, but at least start to live again. That being said, we're fortunate to come behind an orchard that was in citrus. And they ripped out all the trees, and it looked like the soil was great. The trees had been growing well. We planted a crop of green beans there. We called it the zebra field, because as the beans came up in this field, they started to die one by one down the row, the picking rows of the orchard, or the grove. It was an orange grove. And we learned at that time that there's two chemicals, semazine and atrazine, that are pretty tough and pretty, what's the right word? They stay in the soil for a long time. Persistent in the soil. And as the field started to basically die, or at least be stunted, right down to the rows, we called it the zebra field. There's a green, there's dead, there's green, there's dead. We recognized that we had a big problem there. Interestingly, we were able to come back after that crop, that almost failed crop, and put charcoal in. And charcoal is like char, brings some organic matter in. Carbon is the feed for microbes. And with that charcoal application, the field was kind of black at first, but we reincorporated it, put enough water in, and water's the magic ingredient as well, to help introduce life back into soil. We started to see that we could bring this field back, and we've still farmed on that field for about 5, 6, 7 years. When you don't own the land, I'll finish with this. When you don't own the land, for all farmers in all places, if you don't own the land, you're then subject to whatever the next owner will tell you, whether you can stay or you can go. A lot of times if you get a piece of ground back to working beautifully, sometimes a landlord will tell you to get out because they want to use that land for farming as well. And then you just help build it all up and put a lot of investment in. And you measure then, in that case, how much investment do you want to put in a field where you don't know if you have a future or not. So that's also a limiting factor. But we can talk about that more.
I think he's a hero. I think saving soils makes you a hero. And finding life where it's been limited and stripped out and bringing it back is a very powerful tool. And that's everything we're talking about, is don't let it get so far that you can't bring it back. And then what are you going to do to restore it? So thank you, AG. Thank you all, on behalf of all of us, for actually taking farming so seriously and being such a good steward of land. Now, Lily, I saw your eyes raised when AG said that he had been a farmer for 50 years. Lily proves that there is a full range of farming on the dais today. Lily, we're really thrilled to have the Kenyan Farmers Association here and also youth here. You have a personal experience with this, but you have also just come from COP, where you were very active in talking about the importance of soils and soil health. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're thinking we need to do coming out of COP for actual activity and implementation on soil health?
Thank you so much for having us. I think it's the first time that I feel heavy presence of farmers when we are talking about soil, because we know that a third of the world's land is being managed by farmers. So at COP we were very active, and some of the things we were pushing for is that farmers are included in these spaces, and not only as beneficiaries, but as co-creators of the solutions. And I'll give some of the things that we discussed. For example, in looking at the agriculture subsidies, this is a very big thing when it comes to ministries because it is heavily funded. And we were asking that we need soil health to be included in subsidy programs. So we need to start with soil testing so that as we are giving farmers fertilizers and also include biofertilizers, they know what they need to do with them. And farmers are now complaining a lot that they've been doing the same things, but the production is very low. So that is one thing that we are pushing for. And as a young farmer, we also want youth in these spaces. So we need inclusivity. I'm very happy that AG touched on land tenure systems because as young farmers, this is a very big issue we face. Our parents are farming, then we are left behind. So including us as youth is very important, and also having accessible finance. We know that when you need to farm, it's a business. So we are in this for money, not only to feed the populations. So we need access to finance. We need to be included in policies as well. And the policies need to reflect what is happening on the ground. So we need a bottom-up approach with farmers being at the center. And when they are at the center, they should be actively involved in all this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lily. And yeah, making a living from the land is an honored and esteemed and millennial-old job, and we need to value it and enable it to carry on. You mentioned a little bit about soil testing. What are some of the fertilizer stewardship things that you think can help? We have to start with knowing what's in the soil and what nutrients the crop needs. What are some of the best practices you're using in your context?
Yes. So at the Kenya National Farmers Federation, we have an initiative called the Integrated Soil Health Fertility Initiative, where we've trained 50 youth, and they own a testing tool, so they are able to go to our farmers and test their acidity, the pH, the nutrient level, and advise them on what nutrients their soil needs and also what crops they should plant. So this is on crop rotation. So I feel what is working is having soil testing methods that are accessible and also quite simple. Because the problem mostly is that the soil testing is expensive for farmers and also inaccessible.
Just wait one moment. We'll get you back live
Okay.
on
I think
the
it's
sound.
good.
So if we could just have one extra microphone up here. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So I was saying we need soil testing that is not only accessible, but also simple for farmers to use. So when we make it very technical and difficult for us to understand, then we cannot apply the right regenerative practices. So what has worked is also working with youth because they are young, we are innovative, and we are willing to assist in restoring our landscapes. And then farmers are ready. If it's something that will help them for their land to be productive, then we don't need to struggle. So this is one of the methods that has worked. And something else is agroforestry. At KENAF, we have the 50-30-20 rule, where we advocate for our farmers first to have 15% of their land under agroforestry. And the trees that we advocate for is 50% indigenous, 30% fruit and fodder, and then 20% exotic. So this is a very easy method that we can all apply. Even here, the farmers who are here, when you go home, kindly apply this. Thank you.
Thank you. It's like recipes and nutrition, isn't it? You get your macronutrients, you get your vitamins in the soil, and you're testing to make sure what that soil needs. That's fantastic. And then I love the agroforestry recommendations too. Pravina, let's talk now about, we've heard about the AMSIN engagement, we've talked about practical things farmers are doing. IUCN, the International Union for the Conservancy of Nature, just had some major discussions on these topics. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the policy environment that you've had over at IUCN on this?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Robin. I come from Safe Soil. It's a global initiative. And I'm so happy to have AG and Lily on the stage because we work with over 250,000 farmers. And the reason we wanted to, at IUCN, we were engaged in a certain policy-making process. But the reason we wanted to do that is we came to a logical conclusion after working with so many farmers over 25 years that while you can implement things, like Lily said, they need investments. They need subsidies for them to be able to adopt the right thing. Like farming is a business, it has to be profitable. And when you ask people to change their behavior, you need to support them. And how do you support them? Because farmers are, in India, they're 50% of the people. And in India, farmers, a 2-3 acre farmer is a medium-sized farmer. He's not a small farmer or a micromanager farmer. The large farmer is only 10 acres. That's all they own. So we work. Across Asian countries, a lot of farmers have small land holdings. So and they are the custodians of soil as well. Or in many ways, trustees of soil, I would say. So when you have to have them supported, or for that matter, only when you support them, rest of the soils of the world will be taken care of. Otherwise, they're going to kind of get into the virgin lands because the soils are losing, the lands are getting degraded. So you need to somehow make whatever governs soil be more permanent than the politicians. You have politicians come in and go with elections. What stays is the legal framework. So you need money, you need legal framework for you to be able to govern something as foundational as soils in a permanent manner. So at IUCN, there were 2-3 resolutions. Actually, Martina also supported one of the movements, one of the resolutions on soil. The ones that we supported as co-sponsors was a resolution called the 007, James Bond resolution. It's a soil security resolution where it's trying to look at, come up with a global legal instrument to govern soils with a framework, the soil security framework, which looks at soil in a holistic manner. It looks at it in 5 different ways. And the second bit that it says is that while we have those frameworks in place, Martina, I'm having the problem you said. The phone got locked up. The second bit is that, there are a lot of conversations. If you see the decision 16 of UNCCD is asking for operationalizing activities that will neutralize the degradation. Like the AMSIN that James was talking about is about political will being established. But who is going to guide the political will and operations? You need a legal framework. And after studying enough, like one of our proponents or the guides that we had, Dr. Irene Hauser, figured out that there is no legal instrument that exists right now globally that governs soils in a holistic manner. And this framework, which was there, we sought the IUCN Congress to come up with the resolution to have, let's create a model soil security law, which can therefore later be adopted by nations or the UN bodies which are custodians of soil and land, like the FAO or CCD, so that soils get governed in a sustainable manner. And it was a drama. We had 3 rounds of voting, and finally we won it. So now it's a mandate for IUCN to create the soil security law. The motion expects that, and we expect to work with partners like Martina and a few others to be able to create that, and hope, pray, wish, whatever else, for the UN bodies to push it further and have countries also adopt it.
Amazing. A soil security law. What do you think? Yeah. Extraordinary. And you've called upon Martina because Martina's been active in so many of these spaces. Martina, from IUCN, from AMSIN, all the way through CCD, here and beyond, you've been working on a lot of different spaces. We had a big announcement in Brazil about RIAs. Do you want to tell us a little bit about some of the things where WWF has engaged on these issues?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I'm with our WWF food program. It's called Nature Positive Agriculture and Food Program. And one of my roles is what you mentioned is make soil more prominent for politicians. So that's something we have started years back. I think we started was during the UN Food System Summit, and I look at Lee, where we had the initiative on soil, which is now the coalition on actions for soil health, which is, I think, one of the strongest and prominentest approach we have. It's a coalition, and the coalition even is now also one of the so-called PAS, the plans to accelerate actions, I hope it's right, during the COP30. So there is really a very strong program in soil. You mentioned the IUCN resolution, which was a real fight to get it through. It's now through. The question is, what are the next steps? And also to mention, I think, RAIS, which was an initiative which was initiated by the Ministry for Agriculture, and RAIS is called, I always have to look, it's called Resilient Agriculture Investment for Net Zero Land Degradation. So this is also one of the COP initiatives, and I'm very optimistic that this is something which will be carried on. And I think we have set this foundation. And for WWF, as I mentioned, this is a very important program. It's on policies, but it's also on science, and it's also on the implementation on the ground. So land restoration, restoration of degraded land, it's closely connected to food system, to food security, and it's something really we want to build on, and it's really encouraging listening also to you guys from a young farmer and a more experienced farmer, and to listen what's happening on the ground, and it's super encouraging, because when soils erode, we lose our carbon. And when soils degrade, we lose biodiversity, and when soils fail, we lose the ability to produce food. And one of the ways now from the policy point of view is, and now I go a little bit back on more the global and national policies, is really we need a better alignment of the climate, the biodiversity, and the land agenda. Because soil at the end should be integrated in this global and at the end in the national policies. And if we talk about the national policies, it's about under the CBD, it's a National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plans. It's under the UNCCC, the Land Degradation Neutrality Targets, and under the UNFCCC, the Paris Agreement, it's the NDCs, the National Determined Contribution. And on that one, as WWF, we have done an analysis for the COP30. We had looked and assessed the, at end of October, submitted NDCs, at that time was 15.8. And we are really look how soil is reflected. And it's encouraging to see that there is a growing interest in the NDCs on soil and soil health. And just to mention one, Nepal is mentioning soil organic carbon. Cambodia is talking about conservation, climate-smart agriculture measures, and to improve soil structures, enhance soil health. It's Pakistan, which make regenerative agriculture, Mauritius, Sao Tome and Principe, just to mention one where really there is a growing interest and the integration in soil in all these in all the NDCs. And as WWF, one of our tasks is also what we want to help governments, and once again to bring it to environment and agriculture, to develop guidance and tools. So one of the tools we have developed is the Food Forward initiative, which integrates, give recommendations for politicians, for decision makers on soil, for the NDCs and the NDSUPs. And we have launched at the COP also a nature positive toolkit, which was developed, by the way, both were developed with UNEP, with partners, also with FAO. So there is a lot of instruments available. So we really want to have to implement. And let me close, I think the most important thing is the financial approach. So we have to consider how we really could get more climate, more biodiversity, more finance for land restoration, for soil health in this context. And I stop here. Thank you.
Fantastic. There is no one who has a better command of all the spaces where this kind of policy conversation is happening than you, Martina. So thank you for all the guidance that you and the team have been showing across the spectrum of engagement on these issues. And point well made on finance. We're going to take some questions from the audience now. So start signaling if you're interested. Oh, good, we have some hands. Martina, I'm just going to ask you one quick question as we get ready to go to the audience. Except, sir, I think we need her to have a microphone. Right, so I just need him to give her back a microphone. We're getting a little energy here. Great, here's our first question.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. My name is Ken Jugi. I am a chemist, so I happen to deal with the soil testing at crop nuts, Limuru. And my comment or my contribution is I want to thank you, our panelists, for this insightful discussion on soil health. Considering the urgent need for sustainable agriculture, how can smallholder farmers who form the backbone of our food system be better supported with both technical training and affordable soil solutions to implement these resolutions effectively on the ground? So that is my comment, contribution.
These are great questions.
Yes.
We'll take 2 or 3 and then come right back. So, Madame with the black blazer, yes, you will bringing a microphone to you right away.
Hello.
Excellent. Lee is a multi-talented stakeholder here. She organizes, she moves the microphones.
She could go first.
Thank you very much. So my name's Jackie McGlade. I used to be the UN chief scientist here, but I'm now a professor at Strathmore. But my other job is I'm a farmer. I'm a livestock farmer here, working on some of the worst soils in the world, as I can tell you, down in the Mara. And so what I wanted to comment on, I love the fact that we're farming, but I also want to really reinforce how important livestock are in resuscitating land. And if you don't believe it, I'd love to invite you down to parts of the Mara, but also to a wonderful place, Barana, where literally putting cows on the ground for 24 hours and getting them to sleep has brought the seed bank back on 35,000 hectares of land. It's just amazing when you see livestock interacting with little plants and then actually seeing the soil come back to life. So please, can we always talk about livestock as well as taking plants out of the ground? Thank you. They are the soil engineers above ground.
They are. Well said. And it's the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralism next year. So we'll maybe get Martina, who worked on that campaign as well, to talk a little bit about rangelands momentarily. This lovely gentleman, hello.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Ali Mamzola. I'm coming from Tanzania. I'm at the Africa for Resilience. So it's a community of practice that is in 4 countries: Tanzania for Resilience, Uganda for Resilience, Kenya for Resilience, and Burkina Faso for Resilience. So I work with smallholders farmers in Dodoma and Mpwapwa, a very semi-arid area, a very drought-prone area, and also a very flood-prone area. And the data say that the soil health is really degrading. So my question is, so how can we create synergies between indigenous farmer traditional restoration knowledge and the managing technologies like aeroponics? Does anyone know aeroponics?
Hydroponics?
Yes. Aeroponics. So it's a technology whereby you are planting crops without soil. So it's a vertical aeroponic whereby you're putting plants and you don't need soil at all. So how can we mix these two, having the local, traditional, indigenous knowledge, but also mixing the science like aeroponic, a soilless approach to develop a more resilient and sustainable agricultural practices? Thank you.
Amazing. I know I said I'd take 3, but there's this lovely woman who's been calling for her hand. Then we'll go back to the panel.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the amazing discussion. My question goes for you, James, or Martina. Thank you, James, for highlighting the importance of AMSEN. As maybe we can say, as soil lover, what strategies can be employed to ensure that farmers and soil-focused stakeholders are effective mainstreamed into AMSEN discussion and decision-making process? Thank you.
Yes. So, Martina, why don't we start back with you, and we can pick up some of the themes on rangelands that was so brilliantly raised. And I mean, rangelands are half the world's soils, so it's incredibly potent.
Yes, thank you. I love your question. It's a good segue also to, I have to promote a little bit our event tomorrow evening in the Green Room, which is exactly on this topic where we want really to focus on rangeland and pastoralist. And as you mentioned, next year we have the International Year of Rangeland and Pastoralist. And next year also we have the UNCCD conference in August in Mongolia. So both will have land, they will have soil, they will have rangeland and grassland as a focus. And I think this is really the bridge, because if you look at grasslands, grasslands are the biggest carbon storage, yeah, and we often forget this. And this also leads us to really on focusing on restoration of grassland and degraded land. So I'm very happy, and this also connects to the whole livestock discussion. Hope to see you tomorrow at 6:30 in the green room. Such a little bit promotion for the event tomorrow, and also for the overall UNCCD conference. I think this is a very important place also to exactly bring in soil, bring in land in a bigger discussion. And we still have time. It's 8 months away, so we still have time to promote this. And not only here, but we have to do something in between, and really to strengthen the messages on soil health and storage of soil, of carbon in the soil. So thank you for your question. I like it.
It's fantastic. I think this is the start of a campaign to get soils and land, not just land degradation, but soils and land into CCD in Mongolia. Pravina, smallholder questions.
Like Ali was saying, you need incentives. Like, why do you need money for a smallholder farmer? When a smallholder farmer's behavior changes from doing a certain type of farming, which is very chemical heavy, to going towards building soil health and life into soil, you need money for the seed. You need money for the equipment change. You need money to be able to understand and tide through whatever changes happen. The kind of weeds that show up when you change your land management practices is very different, and you don't know what to do with it, right? So everything needs money. So first and foremost, you need money. Second is, which is not really spoken a lot about, is training and hand-holding, not just training. So most of the time people think training is like you just, it's like a classroom environment, you just do one round of training and it's done. No, there has to be hand-holding from the time of the training until the entire behavior change has been achieved, because farmers kind of see things change on a regular basis. Farming is not a 9-to-5 job, it's a 24/7 activity. The land is continuously living, breathing, actively participating with you, growing things for you, throwing things out that it doesn't like, or the insects are coming and they love something that you're growing and they're gonna eat all of it in a night. So how do I control the pest? So when I am managing a land as a smallholder farmer, and I'm moving towards feeding the world better, I need to be handheld. When I say handheld, like what we do in Safe Soil is that we work, the number of farmers we work with, we literally have a 12/7 call center where a farmer can call after going through particular training and adopting new practices if we see something new. There are groups formed on WhatsApp with lead farmers responding to queries that come with 2-hour delay, just 2-hour delays. Because until unless you do this, there is no way we can expect farmers to take the burden of taking care of soils. Without supporting them financially for changing, without supporting them with the knowledge access, or for that matter, putting the knowledge to use, there is no way. So these are the 3 things I would say needs to be done for small farmers to move towards good practices.
That's just brilliant. I mean, honestly, we cannot expect smallholders who are the least resilient and most on the front of change and degradation to be the ones who are financing all of this change. And I think Martina was alluding to that as well, not only at an architectural level, but at a practical level. Those at the, with the least resources should not be the ones who have to make all of the changes and to be able to find the financial wherewithal to make all of the changes. So thank you for all the good work you're doing. Lily, she mentioned training. You were talking about training. I think your colleague at Kropnitz is talking about training. Well, how do you think this works for smallholders?
Yes, I think training has really been touched already, and why it's important to not just train farmers and leave them, but hold them all through the process. So I'll just add maybe some things that I had also noted down is the payment for ecosystems. So we know that for farmers to really achieve benefits of biodiversity, it's not going to take 1 year, not even 2 years, it's years of work. And sometimes this is not seen immediately because your produce might still even be the same, but your soil is improving. So we really need to reward farmers as stewards of biodiversity so that they can, it's still part of incentives. And then I'll also say access to markets. So as we also work on improving the soils, giving them inputs, where are they taking all this produce? So it needs to be holistic from beginning to the end so that farmers see it as a sustainable thing they can also invest their time, knowledge, and money in. So I think we've mentioned almost everything. Yeah. Then on the synergies, it's very important we see this as affecting all of us. It's about food. I might not be a farmer, maybe you're not a farmer, but we all eat. So we should all be worried every day that our soils are degrading and we need to do something about it. I'm very happy CropNut is here because there is a project they are working on helping in soil testing to see if we repurpose fertilizer subsidy and include trainings and even soil health. Is it really going to be better for farmers? So I'm very happy they are here. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. And AG, the hydroponics, you're in the vegetable business. You probably know better than anyone. How do you grow vegetables without soil and with soil?
We've been fortunate to have a chance to try a lot of different kinds of agriculture, including hydroponics and soil, where you create a soil and put it in a sock and grow, we call it a sock farm. I wanted to just make an observation. There's some farmers in the world that have been on the same piece of ground for generations and generations, 10 generations, 8 generations, 5 generations. A lot of our friends that are part of our solutions from the land group, they've been on their land for 100 years and plus. And for the ones that 20, 30 years ago started to go back to no-till, they've seen tremendous increase in soil biology and an ability to then hold that soil, take heavy rains, and get in there and plant where some of their neighbors have not. They're not going back to any other old way. They like to see this, not new way, but it's an ancient way too, of making their soils better with each year, with each season, and that's pretty exciting. The same thing must be said, though, for soils all over the world. What is arable land? The arable land, as far as I remember, USDA definition is that land that received enough rain in a season to get some kind of a crop of grain out. And that's what the definition of arable land is. I might be wrong with that. But that being said, I actually live in the desert, in the Coachella Valley. It's basically an extension of the Sonoran Desert next to Mexico in the southern part of California. It is sand. It's a desert. And yet when you add water, and again, I'm a fruit and vegetable grower, not a tree grower, but a tree grower too. If you're irrigating your crop, and there's so many ways to get your water source, including moving it thousands of miles so it comes into your valley. But if you're irrigating your crop, it's a different kind of agriculture, significantly different than rain-fed agriculture, where you're hoping it rains enough to get your crop off. With irrigated agriculture, you're manipulating water, you're turning it on and off as you need it to make your crop do what you want it to do. And I've seen the most amazing crops being grown in abject sand in the desert. It's almost like a patient with a drip line in his vein, no different than hydroponics. Whatever's going into the vein, into the soil, will give you a crop. It will give you an incredible crop. So farming in soil that's sandy, in other words, that just is, boy, you put water on it, it goes straight down, and you have to water tomorrow, is not different than the hydroponic side of things, where you're just constantly, with a small amount of water, passing water over the roots, or aeroponics is similar to that. And the package that you put together in nutrients will determine what the plant, more than obviously, will uptake. If you're missing out on certain minerals, well, so be it. That plant's not going to have those minerals when you're hydroponic. The more dense your mineral package and fertilizer base is for the hydroponics, the more that plant can thrive with a full package of minerals that allow it to be nutrient dense, let's put it that way. So my point on this is there's so many different ways to farm on soils that are basically not desirable, or you wouldn't ever farm, except for the tools we have today here in the 2025. That's why we call it a renaissance of agriculture. It's unbelievable how many different ways we can farm with technologies off the shelf that have already been proven, proof of concept done, that you can turn a landscape into a pretty amazingly good production. Might be expensive, but it might be also really valuable when you had a piece of ground that you thought was worthless. that you can turn back into something that can grow a pretty decent crop of fruits and vegetables. I wouldn't recommend it for growing grains necessarily because of you can't see the exchange there. But for growing fruits and vegetables as value-added, nutrient-dense crops, there's a great future there, I think, for anybody that's close to a large urban population, especially like I am.
Tremendous. And I think when things are green, right, when we think about the Great Green Wall and some of the great projects that CCD has borne, it's about keeping the land green, and that still allows you to do lots of great things to experiment with other forms of food production, especially when they're high-value crops like fruit and veg. We are so lucky that you were on this panel, because that was not an easy question, and here we had this extraordinary expert at hand. Now, the last question was on AMSEN, and we have an expert on that. So, over to you.
I would also like to say that I've got a lot of experience in dealing with fruit and vegetables, because that was my business before I joined UNEP. And one of the last things that we did was in southern Portugal. I was in charge of a very, very large salad growing operation where 35 years we had been growing spinach and baby leaf salad in sand. And after about 10 to 15 years, because the root was being maintained and that it was being plowed in on an occasion, that if you like, that sand, that substrate, turned into a soil of sorts. So you could, and that was hydroponics, in a way, because we thought, right, okay, what is the best way to grow salad in the winter so it doesn't get waterlogged? Well, you go to a sandy soil. Well, it wasn't even a soil, it was just sand. So even after that, after 20, 25 years, you still get that. And that's why I said carrots, because carrots are one of my favorite things to, and they like sandy ground. Okay, on AMSEN, I think the most important thing about AMSEN, to be honest, right now, is that we get soil health and land into a really strong resolution within UNEA writ large. So if we can, I would like it that we really try for the next UNEA, amongst all of us. I can't do it because I'm with the Secretariat, but if stakeholders and countries, etc., were to put something forward to take UNEA forward, like we did with IUCN, and I'd love to know more about your efforts as well, then I think that is going to help us. And I think by showing that AMSEN is the vanguard to a much wider political push, I think will be really important. Thank you.
Fantastic. So for our esteemed panel, would all of you rise? And then I would like all of you to give these heroes of our soil a big round of applause. Thank you so much. How many of you in this room are farmers? Stand up if you're a farmer. And that includes rancher. Oh, yes, we have farmers in this room. That's fantastic. Do you love soils? Yes. All right, how many of you are with an NGO in this room? Stand up, stand up. And some of you are both, right? That's fantastic. Do you love soils? Yes. All right, how many of you are with the UN or multilateral agencies? Oh, you see, there are only a few.
They're too shy.
Come on, stand up, stand up. Do you care about soils? Yes. And people with governments? Any government people? No? Well, we need to have, Yay! Oh. What country are you with, madam? Kenya. We love a host country. Your soils are beautiful and diverse. Thank you for coming and caring about soils. Do you love soils? Yes. Any scientists in the room? Yay! Scientists, stand up. Do you love soils? All right, so Eliane was right. This is a multi-stakeholder passion. Thank you. Thank you, panel.
Thank you, Robin.
So now it comes to us to have some concluding remarks, and there's no better person to do this than a woman who has been the Energizer Bunny of the entire process through the Coalition of Action on Soil Health, who knows better than anyone about how to create coalitions of action and engage multiple stakeholders. Dr. Lee Winoweki is with C4 Aircraft, but is also one of the world's leading soil scientists and the chair of the Coalition of Action on Soil Health. Lee, bring us home tonight.
All right, thank you so much. And I don't know how to follow that energetic closing, Robin. Thank you so much for moderating this event. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And I really wish I had done a Menti poll to understand why you came today. Because back to what Eliane said, we must bend the curve on land degradation. And I think the fact that so many people are here at 7:30 p.m., dedicated to bend this curve and to do whatever we can in whatever capacity. Martina is going to champion the NBSAPs, make sure soil biodiversity is there. NDCs have soil health in them. Farmers are going to be stewards of their land. Policymakers, we all have a role to play. And we started off this session without even thinking about what is soil. What is soil? For me, soil is the biologically active layer of the Earth's surface. We depend on healthy soil for so much. And I love that we have the Office of the First Lady from Kenya here, 1 trillion trees. And where do trees grow? In the soil. Exactly. We have ministers of environment who are committed to recognize soil health as an asset. An environmental asset is so critical. Who was at CBD last year? I know Martina was. We have the opportunity to have soil biological indicators embedded in the NBSAPs. And as Martina said, we've been tracking the number of NDCs that include soil health. In round one, there were 30. 30 countries mentioned soil. Now we're seeing an increase. In a country like Kenya, which is 80% drylands, 80% rangelands, we will only reach our NDCs if we look at soil carbon in the rangelands. So I hope that you're leaving this panel, this discussion, recognizing the central role of healthy soil for ecosystem restoration. We have AFAR 100 here in Africa, restoring 100 million hectares of land across the continent. And how is that going to happen? If we invest in soil. Soil is the most biodiverse ecosystem in the world. If we invest in healthy soil, we're essentially, as Lily said, farmers are stewards of biodiversity. I wrote it down. Thank you so much. And of course, soil stores 3 times more carbon than above ground. Soil stores more carbon than the above ground vegetation. It is a climate solution for mitigation and adaptation. I am so excited that we are all on this journey together. We have a few action points. James is saying soil resolution. If you go to the Coalition for Soil Health website, we have drafted a soil health resolution. Bring it to your government, to your member states, to your negotiators. Let's see how we can bring this forward and think about what do we really want to do. One of the panelists said, we just want to have healthy soil. Robin says, first, let's not degrade it. And then AG says, once it's degraded, let's restore it. So for me, that is such an important goal that we stop having the increased degradation every global land outlook. 40%, 30% of the Earth's surface degraded, 40% of the Earth's surface. Let's start decreasing that. So with a sincere gratitude, I cannot believe this room is full. Thank you so much to everyone. And let's take the next 15 minutes after I close to just talk to each other. Where are we working? Why did you come? What can we do together to really bend the curve on land degradation and restore healthy soils globally? Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.